Greetings, Poe fans. Welcome to another edition of Poe Unplugged. I am Carmen Bolden.
And I am Jeanie Smith, and we are
The Potastic Two.
Come zoom with us into the Unbook Club dedicated to the works of Mr. Edgar Allan Poe.
Good evening, Poe fans, and welcome back to Poe Unplugged. Tonight we are going to be discussing William Wilson. And this is a story I know for me, I haven't read in a very long time. I listened to it and then I went back and looked at a little bit of the ending, just actually physically reading it, that part again over just to get the feel for it. So I'm anxious to hear about what everybody thinks on this story. It's always been one that I've really enjoyed. I even wrote a short story with a doppelganger at one time. So, all right, who wants to begin?
I had never read this particular one before.
Okay, Gary. So let's hear from you then.
So, the thing that I kept thinking is one of the things about Poe that I really like is he's really good with the slow burn.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's kind of like, okay, all right, I'm getting all this background. When are we going to get to the story? And then when you get to the story, it was like, whoa. I really liked this one. I feel, I have done some Poe readings before at a winery and a couple of libraries, and I've never included this one, but I think I'm going to the next time.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Because I really liked it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, because like I said, I've got a book of his complete stuff, and there's so much there. It's like, well, for some reason, I just never read that one. I don't know why.
Yeah. Who else wants to add in?
Yeah, I mean, you know me. I love this one. I've said this for a while. I really, really, really like this one. And Carmen, like you, the doppelganger. Poe did not create the concept of the doppelganger, but I think this is probably one of the first stories. Of course, I didn't like fact check this, where like he really uses this. I mean, this trope is huge in horror, fantasy, sci-fi, and I absolutely love it. What I particularly like about this doppelganger story too, from the aspect of, you know, is he really there? Is it a figment of his imagination? Because even at the end, you kind of you kind of realize it's in his head, but he constantly teases the fact that other people see or are talking to him. And I love how his doppelganger can't really speak loudly, so he's almost like this ghostly whisper, like this conscience in his ear. And what I really liked about this story was that he pulled a lot from Poe's real life. He used a lot of his own things in here. He gave William Wilson the same birthday, which is super cool. The January 19th. Poe went to school in England, so that was cool. His gambling. But I do like the fact that in this, our narrator is like this awesome, stealthy gambler. But we know that was not so in Poe's case. He was not the best gambler on the planet.
No. Yeah, he was in this story a card sharp.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of fun I think in this because it also uses a lot of Poe's real life things that he drew from his real life. But I just love, like Carmen, like you said, like the doppelganger is such a fun concept, and I always go back to Percy Bysshe Shelley with the doppelganger because there was lore around the doppelganger, which is if you see your doppelganger, you're going to die.
Yes.
It is a death omen. So I love from the beginning, like he saw this like back when he was in school. It's almost like haunting him, this concept of like death. So I like me personally love it. I love to see Poe is the master, what he did with it. And yeah, one of my favorites. I love it. I love everything about it. I love it.
Yeah, I totally agree. This one once I read this because I read this for the first time probably back in 2018 or 19. It was not one I had read, early on or anything. And the one of the things that if you've never seen this particular duo perform this. They've been to the Poe Fest. They've also been to the Birthday Bash in Richmond, but they're the Cold Hearts, and they have a three-part series of, well, it's two parts are William Wilson, and then one is when they're at basically Poe at the Manor House School in England, and then the other one is when he's in college, and then, or William Wilson is, I should say, and then they've added a piece of when Poe was in the army, and they have songs that they did that they wrote for this, and it is an amazing performance. So if you ever get to see the Cold Hearts, it's a husband wife team. She has a little short wig she wears, I mean, and it's brilliant. So
Are they going to be at Poe Fest this year?
I don't know. They have been in the past. They were
They weren't there last year, I don't
they
think.
weren't there last year.
No.
I'll have while we're talking, I can look up and see if they've got their schedule out there. But I've seen the first two, because they call one Edgar Allan, and I can't remember what the other one is, but the one with the military piece, that's the only one I have not seen. So that I really want to see that.
So I guess I would just say that, Gary, you said this is the first time you've read it. And Carmen, you said you've reread it for the first time.
In a while.
This is probably a divulging my own incredible shortcomings as a human being. But I read through all the Poe stories in my 20s, which was 30 or 40 years ago. And I felt like, okay, I've read all the Poe stories. And I realize now, as you just kind of slog through the book, that so much of it wasn't registering. So when they're big ones like The Pit and the Pendulum and Cask of Amontillado that, really make an impression. But I had no memory of this story whatsoever. It was all just fresh to me.
Oh, wow.
In reading it. And as Gary was saying, in my humble opinion, a little bit of slow burn goes a long way. And so, for the first few pages, okay, let's get on with it. But maybe that's the point of a slow burn, because then you kind of hit the groove, and now suddenly you care, right? Now you suddenly want to know what happens.
Yeah.
And all that stuff that you were kind of wondering, why the hell am I reading this, is now kind of coming into play, which again, I guess is probably the definition of a slow burn. So I guess as I was reading it, I was feeling like this is a slog, but when I was done with it, I felt that was masterful.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that I could really read it again and maybe even again and get more out of it, with more readings, because there's just so much there. And I kept thinking as I was reading, going through the slog part, I'm like, okay, Edgar, I know it's going to hit here eventually. And he really did, I thought, a masterful job of really keeping you out of suspense, so that when you got to the part of suspense, it just hit you like a rock.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The part where I got into it was when he started describing that Elizabethan house that was the school.
Yes. Yes.
I love old houses. I love multi-story houses where they've got these little nooks and crannies and secret passages and all these things. And that's exactly what that house had. And so I was right there with him when he started talking about all that. In fact, to me, that was the most descriptive part in the whole story.
Right.
Yeah.
I think his description kind of fell off for the rest of the story, unless he was describing what his doppelganger was wearing or looking like. But otherwise, we didn't get a whole lot of other description. So I thought that was kind of an interesting point.
Yeah, I agree with you, Cheryl, because most of his stories, especially at the beginning, are so flowered with language and adjectives, adverbs galore. And this one didn't do it as much, and which was definitely uncharacteristic for him.
Right. I thought it was very different than many of his others.
When was this 1839.
1839.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Mhm.
maybe he was trying, that was kind of in his heyday of when he was
Yeah.
writing. Some of his best works came out of that period. Maybe he was trying something different. Who knows?
That's
Mhm.
kind of the feeling that I got. You know, it was kind of like this just seems so different than most of his typical things that I've read before.
Hmm. I
There
agree.
All
was
right,
still,
people.
and oh, sorry, Jeannie.
I was gonna say, get it all out before I get started. So go ahead.
Uh-oh.
I was just gonna say, and there was still humor in the story. Like the thing that he hated the most about this guy was that he had his name that he
Yeah.
hated, so we had to hear his name twice. So I mean, to me, that's like kind of like that funny, like, oh, really, you have to have my name. Your name has to be Holly, the worst name ever. Like I don't know. I just thought again, I felt like there was little moments of like just funny in there, which I really enjoy. Any sort of like comic-y lines or at least things that I find funny. So I appreciated that, especially that with the name. Like the one thing that really got his goat was the name, which we
Yeah.
don't even know because he has to
Right.
keep it private. Like he gives us that's another thing. He gives us this fake name for
Mhm.
namesake. We're just gonna call me William Wilson. So that's fun.
Oh, yeah. Jeannie, before you get started, let me throw this out there. I did look up to see, because Holly, you mentioned, you wondered what was, the first story that had a doppelganger mentioned.
Oh yeah.
And so I found, let's see, the first known use of the word doppelganger is in the novel, and I may be butchering this, but it's by Jean Paul in 1796 called Sabinkus. I may be butchering the pronunciation, but it said, let's see, it's the first fictional story about a double or look-alike. The concept of a double goer or similar entity existed in folklore and mythology long before. But so the first actual novel was this one. So not too far before Poe
Mhm.
when you think
Yeah.
about it.
I've been always been fascinated by twin stories because I am a twin.
Oh, that's right,
Um,
Cheryl. I remember you saying that. Yeah.
I'm not an identical twin, but I remember when I was growing up, it was my sister and I would always say like, "I'm the good one, you're the bad one." Kind of, I'm the angel, you're the devil. In fact, we still
So
do
so
that.
which was which?
Well, of course, I'm always the angel. And she thinks she's the angel, So I mean, this has been going on ever since we were born,
Right.
It's still going on. Uh,
That's
That's
great.
hilarious.
yeah, we both think, we each are just too cool for ourselves, and the other one's, bad. So I keyed right in on that with this story. And I mean, there were times when, even though we weren't identical, that we almost felt like we were one person and we could understand each other's what was going on in each other's head. And we would sometimes walk into a room from opposites, like from outdoors, the front door, back door, walk in, and we'd be humming the same song in the same place,
Oh, wow.
which was really kind of eerie.
That is.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it showed how in
Alex.
tune we were.
Yeah.
And even though I still think we're very much like night and day, both of us. We have such very different interests. Um, but I don't know. I keyed right in on that. And okay, here's something else I want to add about that. I knew right away that this was a story about like will versus conscience. Did
Mhm.
anybody pick up on that immediately? I just knew that's what this was. This was like a rivalrous double. And one of them was like the angel on your shoulder, one of them was the devil on your shoulder. And they were talking about will versus conscience, like
Hmm.
a morality tale. And that's what hit me. And I felt that all the way through. And I don't know if it had anything to do with me being a twin and this devil angel thing that I grew up with and still deal with, my sister.
Right.
But I mean, the word conscience was in capital letters in the
Yeah.
little epigraph
Hmm.
at the beginning.
Mhm.
And then I looked at the name William, Will I am,
Mhm.
Hmm.
son of Will, son
Mhm.
of Will. kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so I just
Mhm.
kind of thought this is going to be a story about this duality between this choice you have, eternal struggle between wanting to do what you want versus doing what is really morally correct.
Mhm.
And I just keyed in on that immediately. And so I sort of like knew it was coming. It didn't surprise me. It didn't
That's
surprise
interesting,
me.
and maybe that's an insight as being a twin.
Maybe, I don't
Um,
know.
Mhm.
That's why
I,
I
I,
brought that up.
I'm not related to him, but a lot of people think my doppelganger is Brad Pitt, and it's just something I live with.
Hmm.
Well, of course. No, we know who your doppelganger is, Steve.
Oh, Vincent Price.
Vincent Price, right.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
I, I liked the story very much because it is so primal and elemental. As you've just been saying, we've seen doppelganger stories all our lives, fairy tales and comic books, every soap
Hmm.
opera, every TV show, Perry Mason, My Three Sons Dynasty, every TV
Yeah.
show has had a double episode, a look-alike
Hmm.
episode. So we've seen, and of course, we've read The Other by Thomas Tryon, a great novel.
Mhm.
So we've seen this story all our lives, but this is a quite different, original, clever take on it because it is so ambiguous and open to interpretation. So
Yes.
I really enjoyed reading it, and as you know, Dark Shadows often lifted elements of Poe stories, and this one definitely in the 1897 storyline in Dark Shadows, Worthington Hall and its strict, stern schoolmaster, Trask, I
Mhm.
believe, were based on the school and Dr. Bransby
Hmm.
in this short story.
That's interesting.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
That
Very
is.
I remember
interesting.
that character.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I do too. And I was going to say,
Wow.
Dr. Jeff, that now that you say that, that makes total sense.
Yeah, the
Definitely.
Yeah.
same sort of strict, dismal school with a taskmaster of a headmaster. Yeah, so I enjoyed this story very much because it sort of presages Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and the Picture of Dorian Gray, which came maybe 40 or 50 years later.
Hmm.
Picture of
So
Gray hit me too.
yes. So I really enjoyed reading this one. Sorry I was a little late. There was a repairman here, but he's gone now. But I just wanted to say that this is a good one, and I enjoyed it. And, the 1968 movie Spirits of the Dead
Hmm.
dramatizes three Poe stories, and William Wilson is one of them.
Okay.
Uh,
Huh, I've never seen that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I haven't seen either.
Yeah, three different directors and stars like Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, and others. So yeah, so that's my 2 cents for now.
So, Dr. Jeff, I'm interested in more than your 2 cents because um, I was thinking specifically of the picture of Dorian Gray, particularly at the end
yes,
where William Wilson kills his alter ego, which is exactly what happens when Dorian Gray kills Portrait,
hmm
and that was 1890, so that was considerably after
hmm
Edgar Allan Poe. But
Mhm.
but I mean, is it essentially was Oscar Wilde essentially playing off the same story, or is it just that, as Holly was saying, this whole notion of a doppelganger is so primal in
hmm
storytelling that you're just inevitably going to run into it?
Yeah, I think it's a little of both. Different people come up with essentially the same idea at different times, especially that far apart. They may not be aware, or they may just be subconsciously aware of having been exposed to the story or the idea in the past. But yes, I'm sure Oscar Wilde had read it and had it in his conscious or subconscious
Yeah,
mind when
yeah.
he wrote such a similar ending of stabbing the painting and it/he dies along with the ending of this story.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I felt it was. Go ahead.
oh no, I'm sorry. You can go, Steve.
One sentence. I was just going to agree that I really feel like Wilde must have at least subconsciously been playing off of that same set piece, because it's just so similar to William Wilson. I just feel like it couldn't just be pure coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so you guys know I'm a huge Oscar Wilde person.
Yeah.
So like he does say, like he does list him as one of his influences. And there's a story by him. I really like it. It's not for everyone. It's called Teleny. It's like a gay erotica. A lot of historians will tell you that Oscar Wilde had nothing to do with it, and that was just passed around his friend circle. But there's actually a doppelganger that actually also shows up in that story, which again plays on the fact that if you see your doppelganger, you're gonna die. I don't know when that was written, as far as when, because Dorian Gray was very early on in Oscar's career. But so I wasn't sure, but I know again with his name popping up, there's another doppelganger story with Oscar Wilde.
Yeah, I just looked it up because I know that Oscar Wilde did draw inspiration from Poe. He was a fan, and I know heavily William Wilson did help inspire A Picture of Dorian Gray. Wilde found Poe through the translations that Charles Baudelaire did of Poe, and that's how he read Poe. And I know the oval portrait by Poe is also a little bit of inspiration, but William Wilson was a stronger one for Dorian Gray.
Weren't Roderick and Madeline Usher, they were twins, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
In the
Yes.
story.
Mm-hmm.
So he was going with it there a little bit, at least the
Yes.
twin thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just looked up what you were saying, Dr. Jeff. Doppelgangers are actually an archetype, which would explain. I mean, it goes back. It says William Shakespeare's Hamlet is an example of that,
Right.
and in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and Jekyll and Hyde, of course, and even in Wilkie Collins' The Woman in White, if you know that story.
Yes.
Anne Catherick and Laura Fairley, the characters that look alike and that are not really related, well, kind of related, distantly related, but they're like twins in that story. Things that
And I
happen
think
to
there's
them.
even a Washington Irving story about doubles or double ghosts or something like that. Oh, also, something else I enjoyed is in the middle of William Wilson, we got a little pre-taste of The Telltale Heart when he crept into his bedroom and looked at him and shone a light on him. So that came before The Telltale Heart.
That's true. And let's see, and I also Poe did I'm getting my Poe ladies mixed up. It wasn't Morella, but it was that had the daughter that looked just like the mother.
It was Morella. Yeah.
Okay,
Morella.
thank you.
So yeah, that's kind of the same concept. She was reborn again, looked exactly the same. So yeah, actually, yeah, that is like a doppelganger. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you really start I needed people here earlier today when I was listening to this to talk about the doppelganger.
And you know what? Going back to what Cheryl was saying about the consciousness, I don't know if anybody has checked out the podcast, the Poe Evermore. Jeff Whitehead is the writer for most of the episodes, and he kind of plays with the William Wilson character a lot as that sense of like consciousness. I really enjoy how they do that. It's kind of like, again, he's like haunting him, and like he believes he's real, but us as the listener, we have the idea like he's just in his head. He's like delusional. I don't want to give anything else away if you guys haven't checked out that podcast. It's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it.
All right, I've held it in as long as I can, people. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. At first, when I first read this back in the day, was not a fan. Because to me, it was very much just, I guess in my own mind, I was battling from my own insecurities from when I was in school, when I was younger, because I ended up going to a school that was so different from my own socioeconomic. And the name and the plays on names was always what the children would use to, I won't use the word bully, but try to intimidate and to cause friction and stuff. So when I was reading it with the first time, I kept thinking like, okay, he is kind of experiencing where you've got this rivalry of this person that is trying everything and they can to psych you out, to try to make you feel miserable about yourself, and try to do everything they can to make your life so different than what you're trying to make it out to be. So that's the way I kind of felt when I first read it many years ago, because I was stuck in that mindset of, putting my own experiences onto it. Now, when I read it again, to me, Poe, this wasn't real. None of this was really happening. Everything is all psychological. It was all in his own mind. He was battling his own personality. It was all everything going on in his head. That's why William Wilson was the antithesis of who he was. He was, shared the same birthday, which I thought was kind of ironic because it said 1811, which was, that was the date that within after his mother died. So he changed, he had a different life experience because now he was played off into a foster home to a new family. And then everything's like, you said it earlier. In his real life, he was a horrible gambler. But in this world, he was like the greatest. He was like a mastermind. It was like everything. And like what Cheryl was saying, when he was describing the house and everything, but then he kind of tapered off on the descriptions, it made me think of when you have an imaginary friend, you create this whole world with that imaginary friend. You create the personality, you create the atmosphere, and in your own mind, and I'm talking from my own experience here and my own opinion, you build this perfect world where you want things to happen. You want to escape the tragedy of going on in real life, and you want something to escape to. So what better way than to create the perfect ideal atmosphere in your own mind? So as I was reading everything that was happening, I was like, is this real? Because like Holly was saying, it was like, okay, is this really another person? Is it, because he was soft spoken, when he crept into the room, when he looked at it. And to me, when he crept in the room, like Dr. Jeff, it was like the telltale heart. Instead of the blue, the pale blue eye, it was himself and the decrepitness of the true tragedy of his real life that he was seeing. And he immediately escaped from it and created another world and went to Eden. So he went away because he was getting too close in his own mind to reality that he had to escape from it. So at the end, and it's like everything else in psychology, in order to break away and start living again, you have to destroy what you've created to hide behind. And so William Wilson was the perfect creation that he was hiding behind and hiding himself. And like Cheryl was saying, I also got some little bits of the devil and the angel. So it's like some of the trueness was in that subconscious, the world that he was creating that was all fictional in my own mind, because I'm like, this is just a recreation in his own head. Because at first I kept thinking, okay, is he in some kind of sanatorium? Is he like lost touch with reality? Is he trying to get back to reality? Which was a good song by myself. But anyway, but yes, and then it's like I'm like, you tear down the one thing that you were using to build this world, which was the persona of who you truly wanted to be and who you thought life was. So that was the whole double-sided. So that was a doppelganger for me from the years when I first read it until when I read it now. I saw it from two different sides of the coin.
Yeah.
So
And I've really felt like Poe threw out little hints here and there, kind of making wonder. Holly mentioned this too, that you weren't sure if he was trying to say, yes, this is all in my head, or, this is a figment of my imagination, or I am mad. And there was one quote like that kind of shows this. Yet this superiority, and he had just talked about whether or not he feared him or not. Yet this superiority, even this equality, was in truth acknowledged by no one but myself. And so a lot of it, I could kind of go with either way. It's like this could have been someone real, but at the same time, reading it again, it really plays off the fact that this seems like it is a figment of his imagination.
Yeah, like
well,
totally, like Jeannie said, like
yeah.
total, like Fight Club, Tyler Durden. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
like I love the scene. I'm not gonna curse because that's like the best scene at the end. He's like, I look the way you look, I blank the way you want, blank. Like yeah, like he makes himself this badass gambler, and he kind of makes him like this self. Like hey, all the kids at school, you know what I mean? He kind of almost made himself this larger than life person because it's like an alter ego. Like I want to be this person, but maybe he did really have a soft whispery voice. Maybe he wasn't really. Maybe he was a little goody two shoes, but he wanted to be that. He wanted to be that badass.
Yeah.
Well, and the simple thing of it is that we all create our own doppelgangers. From very early age, we always have the other persona that we want to be. And so we are creating our own doppelgangers because we might accidentally make a wrong decision. We might make a mistake in life that we truly regret. And so we want to create the persona that would have not done that, so we can correct something that we've done, a mistake that we've made. And in essence, we've created our own doppelganger. So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I got from Poe, because I mean, the man is like the epitome of the psychological writer. He always wants his readers to delve deeper inside themselves, and he's delving into his own self with his writing. And that's what I got from this, because like you said, Dr. Jeff, this was written before the Telltale Heart. So it's like he was inundated with all this stuff that was going on in his own mind, and he needed a way to work through it. So what better way is to create a whole new world that he could use everything that he loved with his writing, his descriptions, things that were going wrong in his life. Like he was a horrible gambler. He was getting kicked out of school instead of be able to, move to a better school and all this kind of stuff. So that was my 411 on the story. So there you go.
So Jeannie, two things. One is this is why I appreciate what you and Carmen are doing, because I hadn't even thought of the figment of the imagination thing. That's probably again another self-revelation about how unimaginative I am. But I really appreciate your insight into this. But what I'm not quite understanding is there a difference between creating a doppelganger and simply striving to be a better person? Because I think we all strive to be better people.
Yeah.
At least I hope we do. Is that equivalent to kind of imagining a doppelganger?
Well, I can understand and I agree that there's two different things of creating your own doppelganger versus trying to be a better person. Now, when I think of creating a doppelganger, I use my own experiences in life. And I had choices that I made, and those choices could have led me to two different paths. And I saw the person on both paths. And that's when I created the doppelganger, to see in my own mind how they kind of would play out. So, and then, yeah, I made a choice to choose the path that I ended up on and left the other side, the other creation, as the one in the back of my mind that I knew that could have happened and was still there and still helping me make choices further down the road. So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It all, and like what Cheryl said, doppelganger is technically an archetype. It is what a person creates. And so, is it truly a manifestation of what you want to be versus what you choose to be? So I think that's where it kind of veers off. Want versus choice.
Yeah. I just finished a TV show on Netflix. I don't want to give away what it was in case because this will be a spoiler, so I'm just going to use the example. And so there were twins in this particular show, and one killed the other one. And they were like mirror image twins. One was the nice, the good person. The other was just malicious about everything that they did.
This is like Cheryl and her sister.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
Got it.
so the good one killed the bad one. And because of her guilt, that manifested her own doppelganger as she would see herself in the mirror or have to play her sister's part because no one knew she was dead. And so so kind of Steve, like with what you were asking, about creating a doppelganger, or is it you trying to be better or not or whatever? I guess it depends on too how deep into the psychosis, and her doppelganger was created out of guilt because she was a good person. So that's an interesting question.
Which comes back to the whole Poe thing of the psychological, the creation of the conscious versus the subconscious. So technically that would be another, we could go out on a limb and say, is our conscious one and then our subconscious the doppelganger?
Oh, yeah.
So, because I know for a fact for many, many, many years that things and choices I've made have made a whole different ball game in real life. So, and then I think and go back to where, oh, what if because this always throws me back to Robert Frost. He was, one of my favorite poets, right along with Edgar Allan Poe, The Road Less Traveled. That is by far, other than Nothing Gold Can Stay, this was always the one because it would always be in the back of my mind, what if I had done this? What if I followed this path? Where would I be now? Would I be in the same situation? Would things have turned out differently? So this is once more one of the things that I love about Poe and his writing. It brings out my thoughts and brings and touches me on a personal level that I want to reach deeper and say, okay, am I reading this from his point of view or am I reading it from my point of view? So
I think it's both, and I think it's something that he's trying to do to us.
I agree.
You understand what I'm
agree,
saying?
Gary. Yep.
That makes sense.
And I
Seriously, I've always thought that about Poe.
Well, Jerry, I completely agree. And it seems like any good piece of writing helps, other than just pure history, is something that's going to help us think about our own situations rather than that of the author.
It's kind of like seeing both sides and looking at the evil side and the good side, and which side do you want to go?
And in the story, Poe, like things, and this is another thing, like when he saw William Wilson laying there, he immediately left school and went to another school. He's like, nope, I'm out. This is something that I'm scared because I'm reaching a point to where reality is creeping back in.
Yep. Yeah, he
So I've got to
realized
go get some
there.
myself.
Yeah, he realized
Yep.
at that moment that it's and he didn't like
Mm-hmm.
what he saw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
didn't it say at the beginning of the story that he was he was quite the wild child.
uh-huh.
And then he went off to school, got packed off to school or whatever, to that wonderful Elizabethan house. And he started to learn, he started to gain some conscience. And that's when he probably that's what I think when the fight really started within him psychologically. Because I agree with you, Jeannie. I think this was all in his head.
What Steve
Yeah.
just said's funny.
And
When
so
Paul looks,
he starts to learn that okay, he's got a conscience, and he was almost like being forced to go that direction, but the wild child won out.
Mm-hmm.
So the rest of his life he was battling those two sides. That's how
Yep.
how I read that. So
Yeah,
he
I
kept
mean,
going to new schools thinking, well, I'll just change schools. But you always take yourself with you no matter where you go.
yeah.
Yes.
well, and in that
Better or
sense,
worse.
Poe did that in his life. He kept
Mhm.
changing things
Yes, he did. That's a good
Mhm.
point.
Yeah, and
continuously.
Mhm.
I love your comment, Steve. Like he said, I'm Poe
It,
out.
it, it's been ingrained into my brain.
That's right. This is a perfect story to fit that. I'm Poe out. And like Dr. Barnsby, is that how you said his name? Dr.
Bransby.
Ransby.
Yeah.
Bramsby. Yeah. I was switching out the Barnsby, it's okay. Anyway, and every time he would talk about him, I felt like he was using him as his compass, like his direction, to where that at one point he was like the person that he wished John Allen to be. That was the person that he truly wished that he could have ended up with as a mentor, as someone to care for him, because the way he was talking about him in the story, it's like he was the moral compass for everybody at the school. He was like the perfect mentor and role model that was needed. So I kind of felt that on a deep level of how many of us, and we've all had struggles, especially during our teenage years with our parents. Because it's like they tell us we've turned into the devil incarnate. It's like, what is this child that I had? Where did it come from? Where did he or she come from? So it's like we all had those different ideas, and one of the ones that always comes to me was my parents were a different generation, because my brother is so much older than me that they were, my parents had my brother when they were in their 20s. They had me when they were their 30s. So it was like there was a whole generational gap. So as I was growing up and in school, all my friends, their parents were almost 10 years or more younger than my parents. So it's like, what if I had younger parents? How would that have changed? Would my life be different? And that's just typical thoughts that kids have. And that's kind of what I was getting in the story from Poe, is like, is this guy who Poe wished he had as a father? Is this somebody that Poe is created as his moral compass? Because he, in my opinion, he didn't really have any kind of male influences to help him. He had more just mother figures.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I went with that. So
Yeah, Dr. Jeff said another Dark Shadows connection is the parallel time storylines, which are explained by saying that the familiar looking people live different lives because they have made different choices. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I've just been thinking about so many other double stories like The Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain.
Yeah.
two boys who look just alike, but they are opposites. And Betty Davis made two movies about twins. If you ever have a chance to see Dead Ringer, be sure and see that. That is a real movie.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we have been inundated all our lives with stories of doubles, lookalikes, one replacing the other, as you just said, Carmen. So it is, very what's the word? In our DNA.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which brings me to one of my favorite stories is by Alexander Dumas, The Three Musketeers.
Hmm.
And one of my favorite movies that on top of that, and was The Iron Mask, which is
Yeah.
all about the twin,
Right.
king, and how they remove the evil king and put the other king in his place, but they kept him in the Iron Mask so he wouldn't have to see him and nobody would know about him. So to me, that in itself was another psychological aspect of hiding the good, because he made the choice of the evil twin. It's like, I made the choice. I want everything. It's all about me, but I'm going to hide what I could have been. And then it was like somebody finally said, no, we need the other one in order for us to survive. So, and that's it's just one of those things, like Dr. Jeff and everybody else has been saying. We have it in our DNA of choices. I mean, the chimera. Some people technically do have it in their DNA because they have their twin, or because they have their DNA. There's two DNAs. That's why the chimera, mythology is all about two and one.
So I hate to have to take it to this level, but I can't resist myself. In the original Star Trek series, 1960s, William Shatner Star Trek series, there was a transporter malfunction where a person going through transporter was divided into two separate beings, the good and the evil.
Yes.
And the idea was that the good one was just too goody and couldn't be decisive, like the good Kirk, just couldn't make strong decisions. And obviously the evil one was like hitting on Sergeant or Ensign Rand. But the idea was that we both have a balance within ourselves.
Yeah.
And that the transporter function was creating these two different pieces of what are unified within ourselves. Yeah. And what I found interesting about that is just this idea that we're more complex, neither you're good or you're bad. That you really need these nuances to truly fulfill who you are. Anyway, I apologize for taking it to that level, but just what came.
And that's what Dr. Jekyll wanted to do, to
exactly
separate the good and the evil.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so he ended up with two people.
Exactly.
And Jeff, you mentioned the Dead Ringer. That's one of my favorite Betty Davis movies, where she plays identical twins, Edith and Margaret, I think their names are. And I think Edith is the poor waitress and Margaret's the rich woman. And the way Margaret gets rich is because she steals Edith's boyfriend, and he's rich. So Edith is left to be this poor waitress, to live this terrible life. And while Margaret's just living the life, this grand life in this mansion. And so, of course, we know what's going to happen. Edith decides, I want that for myself. And so originally you start out thinking, okay, Edith is this kind person. You feel sorry for her. You have that pathos you feel there for her. And you think that Margaret's this evil person. But then when Margaret gets bumped off, you really have to figure out, okay, you really have to redo your thinking. Was Edith justified in doing that? Was there any way to justify Edith in her decision? You want to, but can you? It's just, and so I think that the audience is going through the same process that Edith is going through in her head when she tries to assume her sister's identity. So here we have one person playing twins who's now playing the twin sister. I just thought that was fascinating. As a twin, I just thought that's just a fascinating concept. as much as my sister and I battled, I never thought of bumping her off. Fortunately. But I just thought that whole thing, and of course that came out long after Poe. But that's that whole doppelganger archetype that goes throughout literature, starting back from maybe even before Shakespeare. Probably before Shakespeare. I don't know.
That is true. Well, I looked up the Cold Hearts, and so they have, like I said, it's like a trilogy. It's Edgar Allan, Eddie Poe, and Edgar Perry. And they, the last posting that they did on Facebook, and I forgot about this, was October of 2024. And they basically say, you know, up next, and then she's pregnant. So they haven't done, it looks like, anything performing wise since October of 2024. So maybe it'd be awesome if they do come to the Poe Fest, because they're awesome.
Well, yeah, the little brat's probably a year old at this point. She can like take and go fast.
Yeah, but if you get a chance to see them, hopefully they're still going to be performing, because it's Holly, have you seen them?
I have, yeah. You know what? I've never seen them in their like entirety. I've seen bits and pieces. Because I
Okay.
think I saw like the Edgar Allan one, which is the William Wilson version, you know. Because it's funny, after that, everyone kept saying, I'm Edgar Allan. My niece kept saying it because like they kept saying it too. I'm Edgar Allan. The two are like kind of battling out. But yeah, I've seen them. But yeah, I've seen them. I think my favorite moment with them wasn't William Wilson, but that what the one the Black Cat Ball, her and her husband, they danced the whole time.
Yes,
They
yes,
did
yes,
a
yes.
fan. Were you there for that one,
Yes.
Carmen?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, never mind. You guys have no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, that was such a cool moment with her and her husband.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, any other thoughts about William Wilson?
I just have to say, you people pulled so much more out of this than I got on my first reading. I really appreciate the thoughtful insights.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, especially you, Holly.
Especially me. Oh, Steve, you're so kind and generous. Thank you.
Hey, I want to say, Steve, that sometimes I think Poe Unplugged sometimes is a figment of my imagination anyway. So you never know what I'm
He's
going to
not real.
say
We're
and
not
when
really
I'm
here.
going
Yeah,
to say it.
who's to say it's not?
Exactly. So
Oh, my
I'm just
goodness.
saying, that's just, it is one thing that always about me is like, and I would like to make it a point to say that I have said it correctly all night, Carmen. William Wilson.
She
For the
has.
longest
She's
time,
You
I kept
have,
saying
Jeanie.
Woodrow Wilson.
Yes.
Wow.
And every time I'm like, Jeanie, it's William, not Woodrow. We're talking about you know, a Poe character,
Yeah.
not a
Yeah,
president.
we're not talking about a president.
Oh,
I'm like, it was always, and that's what happens when you teach history for so many years and you're teaching American
Uh-huh.
history. The first thing that
Yes.
pops into your head.
I
Now,
was
if
Yes,
gonna
I had been
say,
exactly.
teaching literature, that must, instead of switching over to my history side, then I probably would have, the William Wilson. But nope, it's always the Woodrow Wilson. It's like,
yes, and we did our recording of our review morgue for this month yesterday, and what accent? Because all the movie was Phantom of the Rue Morgue, and so you have all the accents from Poe's story of, oh no, they were Italian, German, whatever.
German, Spain,
Yes,
Spanish,
you were like,
German,
let me say it
Italian.
in German or something, and I was like, oh my word.
Yeah. And only like one or two people were French. So it's like, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So July 29th is our next Poe Unplugged, and we're going to revisit the Cask of Amontillado. And then August 26th, we're going to take a little bit of a detour outside of actual Poe stories, but this is about Poe, by Dr. Jeff's suggestion, The Man Who Collected Poe by Robert Bloch. And then I believe, isn't it Torture Garden is the movie
Yes.
that has that story in it.
Mhm.
So,
Orchard Garden.
mhm.
Torture Garden.
So if y'all want
Okay.
to watch that as well, we can kind of talk about the movie and the story.
Perfect.
So the man who collected Poe, am I looking forward to a serial killer type of thing? Is that what we're talking here?
It's
No,
it's
don't
an
give it away. I
amazing
keep
Yeah, don't give it
reading it.
away. Yeah, don't give
It's
it
an
away.
amazing
reading it.
story.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I just want
and
to know. I'm like, am I looking
So,
forward to
Jeannie.
something good? It's up to, it's a Poe-esque right there. I'm just
Well,
saying.
Dr. Jeff suggested it, so it has to be good. I mean, he's
Yeah.
read everything.
It's
and
amazing.
I have a question about Torture Garden. Is that an old movie?
Yeah, late 60s, I believe, or early
Okay.
70s.
yeah, I can look
So
it
who's
up.
who stars in it?
Jack Palance, Burgess Meredith.
Oh my God.
Wow, I've
The
never heard of
Penguin.
it.
Hmm.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
see.
1967.
Yes. And
Is
if
it
you
on
put
is it on YouTube?
I don't know. It's an anthology of 4 stories.
Oh, it's an
Hammer and
anthology.
Amicus made a lot
So
of
it's a
anthologies.
movie of 4 stories.
Yeah, and one of them is the man who collected Poe.
yes.
Okay.
And the on the newsletter, I added a free version of the story by Robert Bloch. And so when we put that out for August, like I'll also add that on the website as well. So if you get the newsletter, you already will have that free copy of the actual story. And
Okay.
so the movie, let me see. I think it was on Tubi at one point.
Tubi? Okay.
Let's see. Give me a second and I'll look up if
And it is called Torture Garden.
yes.
Yes,
Huh.
Peter
Okay.
Cushing is in it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Mm.
Dark Shadows was stalking me on Tubi.
Oh,
Like after we had our interview with Dr. Gangrene and Jonathan and you, it's like I went back to watching my Perry Mason on Tubi, and there was Dark Shadows right next door, and I'm like, hey, excuse
okay.
me.
It's telling you to watch it. So it says that Torture Garden is on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Fubo TV. Hadn't heard of that one. Let me see. It also
Yeah.
I have Fubu.
it mentions YouTube. A lot of the movies that Jeannie and I review are all on YouTube for free, so it's awesome.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I watch a lot of free movies on YouTube.
yeah. So
Okay. Hopefully I'll find it.
I believe, yes, I just pulled it up. It is on YouTube, so you can get it
Excellent.
for free.
Okay.
Excellent.
Good.
Wonderful.
Yes,
Yeah, and I'll put a link for that in next month's newsletter, and then I'll also attach that link
Yeah.
with the story for August when we put it on the website.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect.
I have
Next
one short
month,
story anthology of his, and it's in there, so I looked out.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
nice.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
So
Next
for next month, did Dr. Jeff recently do a dramatic reading of the Cascamontaiado?
Yes, back on
I suggest
29th.
we include a link to that because that's better than reading it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I will. I'm making a note so I don't.
Actually, yeah, I'm gonna listen to that for my
I mean,
refresher.
seriously, as I recall, you even pull out your trowel for
Yes,
that.
Yeah.
and then somebody else read it on May 17th on the Poe Day, the
Oh, yes.
Doomsday.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I did it in October, and I had the court jester hat.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
Yeah,
Very
awesome.
cool.
So maybe we should do a compilation of everyone doing the Cascamontaiado.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We have
I'll
our
wear my
booze
hat.
setting in the picture. We have the Amontillado bourbon in the picture. I think Carmen's husband has his.
Yes,
So we can,
he has. I don't know if he still has any left in the bottle, but the bottle is beautifully decorated with, scene
Yeah.
from the story. It's a beautiful bottle.
And then we can all wear our jester hats or have our trowels, or we can all have a
So you're
participation.
giving us permission to dress up for the discussion, you're saying?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Who needs permission,
Yeah,
right?
I view this as a challenge.
Exactly. See?
Ironically, I do not have a jester hat, so I don't know how
I
that
do.
happened.
I ordered it on Amazon, and
you've
I
got
love
every
it.
kind of hat.
I actually don't have that kind of hat.
Yeah, I
Bring
actually,
it dang.
I made my husband a tiki gesture hat for
A tiki jester
a-
hat.
yes, went to a tiki festival last year. We're going to again this year, but he was in a cocktail contest, and we created a cocktail called The Last Jest, and it's from Hop Frog.
Mm.
And so we dressed in tiki outfits. I basically summarized the story while he mixed the drink, and we lit it on fire at the end. And so he
Wow.
Oh,
like
cool.
That's awesome.
it's a fez that has all this tiki fabric on it, and then it's got these little flaps coming down with little ping pong fish floats. That's hard to say fast. And so I may wear that.
Yeah, you have to
Well,
wear that.
And Carmen, in your newsletter, I love the picture of you and your husband wearing the matching tiki outfits.
oh, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, that is a good one. Yeah.
Thank you. That's one of my early tiki dresses and shirts that I made us.
It was absolutely awesome. It made my entire
Thank
week.
you. Oh,
So
great.
do you carry a torch as well and light it?
No, we just lit the drink on fire. So,
Oh,
well, if
that's
there's
great.
nothing else that y'all can think of to add to the discussion on William Wilson or any other things y'all want to bring up, we're, I think, at our time.
I just wanted to say I'm reading your book, Carmen, and I'm enjoying it. I just
Oh,
started
thank
reading it last
you.
night, so
Oh,
very
thank you,
good so far.
Leila. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
so glad. I'm so glad you're enjoying it.
Carmen, I'm going to be contacting you in a day or two about featuring you in my June 30th newsletter for your book.
Oh, awesome. Thank
Because
you.
I promised you I was going to do that, and I think I skipped the month or something, but
Okay.
I'll do that for you for this month.
Thank you. I
I'll be on the
appreciate
lookout for
that.
that email in the next day or two from me.
I will. Thank you.
Okay.
I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Oh, you're saying black eyed peas. I was looking at the comments. Oh, cute Poe.
That's why I was grinning. I was
Yeah, just the
amused.
Will I Am reference. That's all it was.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely. All right, guys. Well, this has been awesome. And I can't wait for next month, especially with the challenge of dressing up.
I'm gonna have
I
to
might
go
have to
buy
be
a hat,
visible for
Gary.
this one.
I think I got it from Amazon. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
I'm gonna be
Great
going out
on.
there.
Great on. Mhm.
How many court jesters will we have?
I know,
Until next
exactly.
month
I always
on
am,
Poe
but
Unplugged.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right,
I can
guys.
bring up next.
We'll have a great rest of the evening and a great month, and we'll see you at the end of July.
Have a happy 4th of July.
Yeah.
Yes, happy 4th of
you.
July.
Happy 4th and safe to all.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this. This has been great.
Great,
Yes,
Gary.
a lot of
We're
fun.
glad you joined us.
We're glad to have you, Gary.
Yes.
Bye,
Yes.
Cheryl.
What a great group.
Bye.
Bye, Mini Poe.
Be
Yes.
good,
Bye,
everybody.
Minnie Poe.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Go out.
Oh, wow.
Go out.
Bye,
Oh, bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Micah. Good luck with your stick.
Yes.
Be careful with the stick.
Oh my goodness.
Micah.
Oh, he did the thumbs.
Yeah, he just thumbs up.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah. Gary, you have a good one, and my fellow jester, I will see you next month.